What's up everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. My name is Johners. This is episode 30. Yes, who would have thought we would have got to 30 episodes? We have, and I'm loving every episode, loving doing this podcast. This week it's a bit of a bumper episode, to be honest with you, a bit of a double episode. I wasn't able to get round to talk about WWE Fastlane earlier on in the week, so we'll be discussing going through the matches from last Sunday's WWE pay-per-view. That's Fastlane, the last pay-per-view before WrestleMania, in only 3 weeks' time now, but it would have been 4 weeks at the date of the pay-per-view last weekend. We're also going to be talking with Matt Bayliss. Matt and I went to Birmingham. Well, Matt lives just outside of Birmingham. I travelled to see Matt, spent the weekend with him, went to see Progress Wrestling Chapter 86 at the O2 Academy in Birmingham last Sunday. So we'll be talking through some of the matches there, some of the highlights, the winners, the losers, and the overall experience. So that'll be something to look forward to listening to. And then to cap off this bumper double episode, we'll have our usual NXT and NXTUK reviews towards the end of the show. So stay tuned. Lots to talk about, certainly within the last 7 days, both WWE, NXT, NXTUK, and some Progress Wrestling added in there as well. So I like to start the show every single week with a little bit of a plug for some of my social media, so you can interact with Wrestling with Johners on the various social media platforms that we are part of. Instagram, just search for us at Wrestling with Johners. You'll find us there. Follow our Instagram page there. On Twitter, you can find us simply at withjohners_pod. We've got a Wrestling with Johners Facebook group as well. Just go onto Facebook, search Wrestling with Johners, tap on the icon, and you'll be part of the group there. All the kind of daily news, updates, and kind of interaction there from all the group members. So we're not going to talk any kind of news items because we've got a lot to get into, especially with Progress and the NXT shows to cover a little bit later on. I do want to kind of go into WWE Fastlane. So this is the last pay-per-view before WrestleMania. This is the Fastlane on the road to WrestleMania 35, which takes place at the time of recording just 3 weeks' time. So 3 weeks ahead, we'll all be kind of getting hyped up, getting our snacks ready, looking forward to WrestleMania in just 3 weeks' time. But we're going to be going straight into the main show, and the first match on the card was Shane McMahon and The Miz versus the Usos. So The Miz, of course, was in his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio for this match. And remember that Shane and The Miz were previously the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and they lost the belts to the Usos on the pay-per-view in February, Elimination Chamber. That was quite a good match. This match was also very good as well. McMahon and The Miz performed the Hart Foundation's Heart Attack double team on the Usos to get a close near fall there. The Usos spent the first few minutes working over Shane. Miz hits a dive from the top turnbuckle onto both Usos on the outside to the loud approval from the Cleveland faithful. The Usos get a close near fall from a pop-up Samoan drop, but soon after The Miz was able to hit a skull-crushing finale. But the referee was checking on Shane on the outside after the double team from Jimmy and Jay, the double pop-up Samoan drop. And when the referee turns around, he's only able to counter two from The Miz's skull-crushing finale. In one of the key spots from the match, Shane goes up to hit Jay with a coast to coast, with Jay being down in the corner. Jimmy goes up into the same corner where Jay to do a frog splash on the Miz, who's in the centre of the ring. But Jimmy was intercepted in mid-air by Shane McMahon, who eventually did a top rope drop kick on Jimmy, and that was an awesome spot there from Shane McMahon. The end of the match comes after The Miz is encouraged to go to the top rope to perform a splash. He's encouraged to go up there by his father, only to be caught with a pair of raised knees on his way down from Jey Uso in the centre of the ring before rolling The Miz up for a 3 count and to retain their titles, their championships, after 12 minutes. The Miz apologises profusely once again for costing his tag team the loss, but Shane McMahon has none of it. He attacks The Miz from behind, setting up their match at WrestleMania. Shane gets even more heat by shoving The Miz's father, George Mizanin, basically face plants him and shoves him back down in his seat, and then he applies the world's greatest triangle chokehold on the Miz on the outside. So it was a good match. And I felt that the match, the angle at the end of the match was even better, and that officially turned Shane McMahon heel on the Miz, setting up their match for WrestleMania. Then we get Asuka, the SmackDown Women's Champion, taking on Mandy Rose. So Mandy in this match gets an early 2 count after a knee to the face of the champion. Asuka slaps on an impressive looking octopus move onto Mandy Rose, which Rose was able to power out of. Asuka escapes an attempted bed of roses to strike a wicked knee. Sonya Deville goes underneath the ring to grab hold of a kendo stick, clumsily managing to leave the ring skirt draped over the edge of the ring, which manages to catch Mandy Rose's foot when she comes off the ropes, tripping Mandy Rose, allowing Asuka to nail a sweet spin kick before hooking the leg of Mandy Rose for the 3 count. So Asuka retains her SmackDown Women's Champion after just 10 minutes, and it wasn't the best of matches, to be honest with you. Asuka tried her best to get the best possible match out of Mandy Rose. I cannot explain why Sonya Deville was trying to get a kendo stick from under the ring. It wasn't a no DQ match. There was no reason for her to do that. Obviously, it's storyline, yes, I understand. And the same thing happened again the following, or 2 nights later on SmackDown. But the most important thing here is that Asuka retains. She will be going to WrestleMania, hopefully to defend her championship. Although out of all the matches that have been announced so far, or that develops through this pay-per-view, it's not clear who Asuka will be defended against. So we'll kind of have a look at some of the WrestleMania matches at the end of this pay-per-view review. But Asuka seems to be the odd woman out at the moment. Then we get Kofi Kingston versus The Bar. So I need to kind of lay a little bit of a backstory here. I didn't cover the pre-show, obviously, but one thing that did happen in the pre-show was Kofi Kingston was called by a backstage hand to go and see Vince McMahon in his office. He wanted to discuss with Kofi the WWE Championship. So just before this match, Kofi goes in to see Vince McMahon with New Day members Big E and Xavier Woods, and Vince McMahon says that he needs to go out there now. He's going to be part of the 3-way, and there will be a triple threat for the WWE Championship. Well, Kofi goes out there. Greg Hamilton announces that tonight's match will be a handicap match, with Kofi Kingston going up against both members of The Bar at the same time, Sheamus and Cesaro. Yes, there will be a 3-way for the WWE Championship, but it won't be this match. Kofi, in fact, will be up against Sheamus and Cesaro in a handicap match. So obviously prolonging the storyline with Kofi Mania kind of running wild throughout the WWE universe, throughout the wrestling community. And hopefully we'll get to see the good guy prevail here. But Sheamus and Cesaro do lay in a beating on Kofi for the first 5 minutes until Xavier and Big E they do come out to assist Kofi, but they are attacked in the aisleway by Rusev and Nakamura before The Bar execute a double white noise for the easy pinfall win over Kofi Kingston. Obviously a storyline extended angle with Kofi continued to be screwed by Vince McMahon, which will no doubt lead to Kofi being inserted into the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania. Then we get a match for the Raw Tag Team Championships, featuring champions The Revival against Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, against Ricochet and Aleister Black in a triple threat for the Raw Tag Team Championships. So I have to say, first of all, Aleister Black is the first wrestler out, and his entrance, whether I've seen it 1,000 times on NXT or a few times on the main roster, it is one of the best entrances out there. This guy could very easily be the next Undertaker or a great opponent for the Undertaker. One thing I know for certain is that Aleister Black is the first Aleister Black, and I think his character, his gimmick, his wrestling style is completely unique. Very, very enticing and definitely it captures your imagination. The commentary team mentioned that Black and Ricochet have beaten the bar on SmackDown and the Revival in non-title matches on Raw. So what do I think about the pairing of Bobby Roode and Chad Gable? I'm actually a big fan of it. I've grown to appreciate Bobby Roode and Chad Gable even more over the last few months. They were previously Raw Tag Team Champions, of course. I'm even more impressed with Chad Gable. I think that anybody that's seen him from early NXT days will know that this guy can go. He's an excellent former collegiate and amateur wrestler. He, just like Kurt Angle did 20 plus years ago, he's kind of taken to professional wrestling very, very easily. And although he's been on the main roster for a little while now, they've not really done too much with him. He was previously tagging with Jason Jordan, of course, who's been out with a neck injury for more than a year now. But he has been tagging with Bobby Roode. Like I say, they were previously Raw Tag Team Champions. I do think they make a good combo, but the star of the package, of course, is Chad Gable, and I'm just waiting for him to kind of have his turn. I'm kind of not hoping for a split between him and Bobby Roode anytime soon, but like most tag teams, that will almost certainly happen somewhere down the line, which will hopefully give Chad Gable an opportunity to show what he's capable of as a talented singles competitor. After the first 5 minutes of this match, Roode hits a spinebuster, and Black hits a double knees Meteora on Roode. Chad Gable knocks Ricochet off the apron before executing a rolling German suplex on Black. But before the ref can start any count, Wilder comes off the top rope down with a top rope frog splash on Gable, only for Ricochet to connect with a wicked shooting star press on Dash Wilder, getting a close near fall as Bobby Roode breaks up the cover. That was an amazing sequence of events that 30 seconds there where pretty much everybody hits an awesome move to kind of counter the other person's move. It was an awesome sequence of events, not something you see all the time in the WWE, if I'm honest with you, but definitely worked on this occasion. Ricochet hits a Hurricane Rana on Scott Dawson from the top turnbuckle, sending him crashing onto the rest of the bunch of the wrestlers on the outside. A bit of a bad landing for Dawson and Ricochet on that move, with Ricochet looking as if he landed quite awkwardly on the back of his neck. Ricochet launches himself over the ring post from the inside of the ring to the outside, taking out Bobby Roode. The end of the match, however, comes when the Revival hit their Shatter Machine on Chad Gable for the pinfall victory. And after the match, Roode attacks Dawson with the glorious DDT. Black connects with his Black Mass finisher before Ricochet hits his 360. But the Revival are still the Raw Tag Team Champions. So my thoughts on the match: I thought it was one of the better matches of the night, to be honest with you. I think that Ricochet and Black, although if you go back more than a few weeks ago, wouldn't have been my automatic choice for being a pairing in the ring. They have, of course, been tagging in the NXT Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic over the last couple of weeks, and we'll talk more about their semi-final match against DIY in a bit. But I think it's working, and it's a great way to introduce Ricochet and Aleister Black into the main roster, onto the main roster, without putting too much pressure on them being involved in single storylines. And I think it's a great way to introduce them to fans of wrestling, fans of the main roster that may not necessarily watch NXT or be too familiar with their work on the indies, or too familiar with the work since they've come up onto NXT. But they are getting more familiar. They're exciting wrestlers. They're being allowed to do what they do best. I don't think they've had any kind of moves stripped away from them since coming up onto the main roster, so they have been given a fair license to do what they usually do, to do what they're very good at, and they are winning matches. And this was a very good match. But I'm happy that the Revival retained on this occasion, and let's hope that they get an opportunity to defend their titles at WrestleMania. But being the Revival, it could just be a pre-show match. But then saying that, if Ricochet and Aleister Black are involved, that could be enough star power to bump it onto the main card. Then we get another really good match, another one of my favourite matches of the night. Samoa Joe defended his United States Championship against Andrade, against Rey Mysterio, and against R-Truth in a four-way match. So this match was not originally scheduled, as Ray and Andrade were meant to be on the pre-show in a one-on-one match. So there wasn't meant to be a title defense from Samoa Joe. There wasn't meant to be a US Championship match at all on this card, but they've decided to change the pre-show, the advertised pre-show match between Andrade and Rey Mysterio, include R-Truth and the US Champion Samoa Joe in there, and it's bumped its way up onto the main card as a four-way match. So much awesome action in this match. Samoa Joe executing a dive through the ropes onto everyone else on the outside, which was a great way to start the match. A double Hurricane Rana from Rey Mysterio on Andrade and R-Truth. Ray hits a Hurricane Rana on Andrade from the top of R-Truth's shoulders, so that was a really impressive spot. Andrade attempts a Three Amigos on Rey Mysterio, only to be rolled up for a 2 count on the third suplex attempt. Andrade hits a beautiful corkscrew plancher onto Samoa Joe on the outside, but Ray follows it up with a Hurricane Rana from the top rope onto Andrade on the outside. R-Truth channels his inner John Cena with a 5-knuckle shuffle on Samoa Joe for the 2 count. Joe quickly disposes of R-Truth, sending him into the ring post and to the outside. The end of the match comes when Ray nails Joe with a 619, but Joe recovers to apply a coquina clutch on Rey Mysterio for the submission victory. Well, in fact, I don't think Rey Mysterio tapped out. I think it was a stoppage victory in the end for Samoa Joe, and he retains his US Championship. So it looks like Joe will be going to his first WrestleMania. So he's been with the company for more than a couple of years ago, but he's missed out on the last 2 WrestleManias. That's WrestleMania 33 and 34 at New Orleans last year due to injury. There's a lot of rumours going around that Samoa Joe could have another multi-man match against Rey Mysterio or Andrade, possibly with R-Truth, I don't know, but it worked well on this occasion. Why not repeat it again on the big stage, WrestleMania? But there's a lot of rumour and speculation going online that John Cena could be Samoa Joe's opponent. There's been no official sign of John Cena on Raw or SmackDown, for that matter, to indicate that this is the case, but it would be a good match, and it would kind of link in with their kind of they both came into the business at about the same time. They started training in professional wrestling at about the same time. And it could be kind of a nice little bow on that bit of history there. But at the moment, it's not certain whether Joe will definitely be going to WrestleMania. I hope so. We all know that he's an excellent wrestler. He's a credible character, a very, very credible and menacing heel. Excellent on the mic, probably the best promo in the business, or certainly one of the best promos in the business. Always pulls off good matches, whoever he's up against. And I think if he did go up against John Cena or any of the kind of mentioned wrestlers that he was up against in this match, in a kind of a WrestleMania rematch for the US Championship, it will be a standout match, no doubt. Then we get a Women's Tag Team Championship title defense featuring the champions Bayley and Sasha Banks versus Tamina and Nia Jax. So I haven't got too much to say about this match, to be honest with you. I thought that some of Bayley and Sasha's offense was good. The end of the match came when Bayley was getting the pinfall victory over Nia Jax with a victory roll to retain their championships. After the match, Nia and Tamina laying a beating on Sasha and Bayley on the outside, which led to Beth Phoenix getting involved to stop the heels attacking the champs. Nia crushes Beth Phoenix with a big leg drop in the ring before Natalya comes to her aid to help her long-time close personal friend. And we're possibly looking at Beth Phoenix coming out of retirement, teaming up with Natalya, possibly being involved in a 3-way match to go up against Nia Jax and Tamina. And obviously the women's tag team champions Bayley and Sasha Banks. That would be quite a good 3-way match for the championship. And Beth Phoenix looked great. She was on commentary for the women's tag team championship match at Fastlane here, and that could be a good way to introduce a bit of a legend and a Hall of Famer, of course, into this match. Then we get the kind of semi-main event, you could say, for the WWE Championship. Daniel Bryan versus Kevin Owens. And as Vince McMahon rightly mentioned earlier on in the evening, the WWE Championship was going to be a triple threat match. It wasn't going to be involving Kofi Kingston, I'm afraid. But instead, Mustafa Ali makes his return and he makes his entrance. He was heavily involved in the mix. He was unfortunately eliminated from the Elimination Chamber match last month due to concussion and replaced by Kofi Kingston, which kind of kick-started Kofi Mania, I suppose you could say. But Mustafa Ali regaining his kind of spot on the card, you could say. But unfortunately, just like when Rey Mysterio got that number 30 spot in the Rumble in 2014, when everybody hoped and wished it would be Daniel Bryan, this occasion everybody was kind of hoping and praying that Kofi Kingston would be taking that third place spot. Instead, it was Mustafa Ali, who was a natural babyface. But he did get booed because it wasn't Kofi Kingston, not Mustafa Ali's fault. But just to kind of recap, once again, Greg Hamilton announces that the WWE Championship will be a triple threat match. But like I say, it's Kofi Kingston the big chancer for, but it's Mustafa Ali who makes his return and is the man to complete this triple threat lineup. So Owens hits a tremendous cannonball from the ring apron onto Ali on the ringside area before dropping another cannonball onto Bryan against the ringside barricade. In a stunning spot, Daniel Bryan drop kicks Mustafa Ali from the top turnbuckle to the outside, sending Ali hard into the barrier on the barricade on the outside. Owens hits a double cannonball on both Daniel Bryan and Ali before dropping Mustafa Ali onto Daniel Bryan with a crushing senton. Mustafa Ali nails Kevin Owens with an inverted Hurricane Rana before executing a Spanish fly on Daniel Bryan. Ali misses his 054, allowing Owens to hit a Stone Cold Stunner, but the count is broken up by Bryan before the ref can count to 3. Owens gets another close near fall after a pop-up powerbomb onto Daniel Bryan. Ali hits his 054 onto Daniel Bryan on the ring apron, but only manages to get a 2 count. Eric Rowan then gets involved, only to suffer a couple of super kicks for his troubles. Mustafa Ali then executes a Hurricane Rana, sending Rowan into the ring post before Kevin Owens nails Rowan with a somersault senton. There's a tornado DDT from Mustafa Ali here onto Daniel Bryan on the outside before Kevin Owens drops Ali with a pop-up powerbomb once again onto the ring apron. The end of the match comes when Daniel Bryan catches Ali in midair with a running knee for a 3 count. That was another really fun match with plenty of great spots from all 3 wrestlers. Rowan gets involved again after the match, attacking Mustafa Ali. This was a really fun match. I really enjoyed it. I think one of my most favourite matches from this pay-per-view, along with the 4-way match that we've just seen. Definitely up there as being one of the better matches of the night, possibly the best match of the night. And Daniel Bryan retains his WWE Championship. He's obviously going to be going to WrestleMania. I think Kofi Kingston or Kofi Mania is going to prevail, and he probably will end up being Daniel Bryan's opponent. But for those of you that watched SmackDown on Tuesday, you'll know that this coming Tuesday, Kofi Kingston has a bit of a gauntlet match where he has to take on both members of the Bar. I believe it's Kevin Owens and Rowan. And somebody else that I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's got to go through, I think, 5 opponents, and if he manages to outlast and kind of be the final man standing at the end of that gauntlet match, then he will book his place to WrestleMania to face Daniel Bryan for the championship, but it's going to be a slog to get there. Then we get Charlotte versus Becky Lynch. So this is the match where if Becky Lynch beats Charlotte, she will book her place to face Ronda Rousey and Charlotte in a 3-way for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania in 3 weeks' time. So Becky comes down to the ring with a crutch to kind of aid her getting down to the ring. This storyline has been quite convoluted, where Becky kind of earned her place by winning the Royal Rumble, then she was suspended, then she was reinstated, then suspended again. She's had to jump through hoops just to kind of get anywhere near the championship match at WrestleMania. Then Ronda kind of laid her title down in the ring in front of Stephanie McMahon. The title was taken away from her the very next week. It was declared that Charlotte and Becky, the match at Fastlane, would be for the championship. Then Ronda said, I didn't mean to vacate my championship, I want my belt back. So she's the champion again without actually losing it, of course. So this is kind of not a number one contenders match. This is to see if Becky can insert herself back into the championship match at WrestleMania. So there's a half crab from Charlotte onto Becky's injured leg, and remember that she's still selling this leg injury from however many weeks ago. The story of the match was Charlotte working over Becky's injured leg, of course, which got no crowd heat at all. The crowd were really quiet for this, despite the huge swell of fan support for Becky Lynch over the last few months. Becky does manage to get her disarmer onto Charlotte until Charlotte is able to apply her figure 8. Just then Ronda Rousey does come out, runs into the ring to attack Becky, causing a disqualification win for Becky Lynch, meaning that she will go on to face Becky and Ronda in the triple threat match for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. We knew that this was the likely outcome all along for many weeks now. However, I'm not entirely sold on the way they got here, but the most important thing is they got us here. And I think that between now and WrestleMania, that's kind of the key thing, where they can ramp up the storyline back to the kind of energy and the excitement that we had not too long ago, but it has kind of dropped off a little bit. And I still hope that the interest is there for this match to be the main event at WrestleMania in 3 weeks' time. I seriously hope so. Right, we get to Elias out. This is his third time in the ring to give it to the crowd, play a little tune. We get a random appearance from Lacey Evans before we see an RKO from out of nowhere from Randy Orton on poor old Elias. Just then we see AJ Styles connect Randy Orton with a phenomenal forearm. Once again from out of nowhere, a really good sequence here. But setting up their match even further, or setting up their rivalry, which will set up their match between AJ Styles and Randy Orton for WrestleMania. And I'm really enjoying this feud. I think the match could be quite good, although I've never been a huge fan of Randy Orton. But I think the two of them together, I think Randy Orton is in his wheelhouse here. He's the perfect heel, and I think that AJ Styles is the perfect babyface to go up against Randy Orton. I think the two of them will pull off an amazing match at WrestleMania. Then we get the main event of Fastlane, The Shield versus Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. So Roman, Seth and Dean come out to the original Shield music and appear from out of the crowd. This was billed as the final Shield reunion before Dean Ambrose is meant to be leaving the company directly after WrestleMania. In the early going of this match, Bobby Lashley, Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre go to work on Seth Rollins as the fans chant for Roman Reigns until Rollins is able to tag out to Ambrose. Dean goes to the top turnbuckle, diving off with a huge elbow onto McIntyre on the outside. Things start to break down on the outside with Lashley and Corbin launching Rollins into the barrier at ringside. McIntyre drops Ambrose with a Claymore kick, sending Ambrose into to the outside again before the three heels take turns in beating Dean Ambrose. Roman Reigns finally gets the hot tag where he decks all three members of the heel faction. Corbin catches Reigns with a deep six for a 2 count. Dean launches himself off the announce table into Lashley and McIntyre, and sending those two into the timekeepers area, which was a very impressive spot. Rollins and Ambrose start to mix it up with Lashley and McIntyre on the outside near the kind of pre-show desk far out into the arena. Reigns smashes Corbin with a huge seated powerbomb for a 2 count. Rollins turns Daredevil with a huge dive, taking out both Lashley and McIntyre from kind of one of the upper sections. Well, not upper section, I suppose it's kind of the next section, seated section up, meeting Lashley and McIntyre down on the ground. Corbin gets a close near fall on Roman Reigns with his end of days. Rollins curb stomps Lashley into the announce desk. Reigns nails a spear on Corbin on the outside before all three members of the Shield triple power bomb McIntyre through the announce table. That was an impressive spot as always. Corbin then gets super kicked by Rollins, Superman punched by Reigns, and Dirty Deeds by Dean Ambrose, all in the centre of the ring before the Shield execute their triple power bomb on Corbin on the inside of the ring for the 1-2-3. That was a really fun match. And let's be honest, there hasn't been many bad matches when the Shield have been together, and tonight was no different. If Dean Ambrose does end up leaving, then this will be the last time we see all three members of the Shield for a very long time. And as the show goes off the air, we have Roman, Seth and Dean doing the Shield pose as the show goes off the air. So I thought Fastlane was a really good show. There's good matches on there. Gotta be honest with you, I don't think the any of the women's matches were good. I mean, I know that the Becky Charlotte match was more of an angle, to be fair. Asuka versus Mandy Rose didn't do anything for me, and the women's tag title match was okay. I think that was mostly to build up the angle where we get Beth Phoenix and Natalya involved for a possible triple threat title match at WrestleMania. I really enjoyed the triple threat for the Raw Tag Team Championships between Ricochet and Aleister Black versus the Champions Revival and Bobby Roode and Gable, with Revival retaining. I thought that was an excellent match. Really enjoyed the four-way match for the US Championship with Samoa Joe retaining over R-Truth, Andrade and Rey Mysterio. I'd love to see a combination of those four possibly going at it at WrestleMania if John Cena isn't included, but like I say, that's up in the air at the minute. Really enjoyed the match between Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens and Mustafa Ali. I thought that really did. It started off a little bit quiet. Definitely the fans got more vocal and louder as the match continued. And I thought that the Shield match versus Corbin, Lashley and McIntyre was pretty good fun also. So off the back of Fastlane, how is WrestleMania looking? Well, I say off the back of Fastlane, you've also got to look at Raw and SmackDown from this past Monday and Tuesday as well. But we know that Seth Rollins, who won the Royal Rumble in January, will be facing Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. I think looking at the angle between Triple H and Batista, they've got their match at WrestleMania as well. Looking at the heel turn from Shane McMahon at Fastlane, it's a lock-in now that him and The Miz will be going at it in New York at WrestleMania. And then Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte, the triple threat, hopefully will be the main event as well for the Raw Women's Championship. And it looks like we've got Randy Orton versus AJ Styles. So those are some of the key matches that have been announced. Obviously, we're yet to find out what's happening with the Intercontinental Championship. We know that Finn Balor lost it back to Bobby Lashley this past Monday. Will Samoa Joe be defending his US Championship? We'll have to wait and see on that one. Will The Undertaker wrestle? Will John Cena wrestle? Who knows? We haven't heard anything from either of those two, so at the moment the answer has to be no. But very interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks to see how WrestleMania develops and how the card will look come April the 7th. Right, so we have Matt Bayliss with us to review Progress 86, which took place last Sunday from the O2 Academy in Birmingham. And welcome back to the show, Matt. It's been a few weeks since we've had you on, but thank you for joining us for this review of Progress Chapter 86.
No worries, and thanks for having me back on again, John.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. So, we haven't been to a wrestling show together for quite a while. I think the last one was a 4FW show in Swindon a few years back. But it was great to catch up with you last weekend in Birmingham. Birmingham, your hometown, you know it very well. You've been to see a lot of wrestling shows over the years in Birmingham. But you haven't seen a Progress wrestling show before. So not in person. I understand that you've seen some on DVD and possibly online. What's your kind of experience of Progress before going to the show on Sunday then, Matt?
Quite limited, really. It's like I kind of keep up with what's going on a little bit, but I watched quite a few of the early shows on DVD and online. Did some reviews of them in the past, but like I say, never actually managed to make it to a show before. So
yeah,
so, it was a good opportunity to sort of get together with you and go along.
Definitely, and like I say, we got there. There was lots of enthusiastic fans. I think it was a sellout crowd of about 700 or 800, from what I understand. And as soon as we get in there, you meet up with one of your old wrestling pals. I understand that you're kind of fairly familiar with Eddie Dennis, and you had a bit of a chat with him. So, how do you know Eddie? We've seen some pictures online with you and taunting him with a sheep or something. So, how do you know Eddie Dennis?
It's mostly sheep, to be honest. So I saw Eddie quite a lot with Attack and Kamikaze Pro
Yeah,
and a few other promotions as well. He's someone that I've liked for a long time, and sort of like as a heel, we used to always get taunted with sheep noises and stuff. So in the end, I sort of brought along an inflatable sheep. I think the first time was in a match against Uhaa Nation,
yeah.
or Apollo Crews, as people know him much better as now. And at one point he got hit with the inflatable sheep, and on the commentary on the DVD it was described as a sheep shot.
Great.
And then it was, I think it was about 5 years ago, he had a match against Tommaso Ciampa,
Yeah,
on the same card as Pete Dunne against Trent Beretta as well. So you definitely wouldn't get that card in a working men's club in Birmingham these days. So, but I've known Eddie for quite a long time, and sort of like always followed him, and he's an amazing in-ring talent. He's great on the mic, and he's a really genuinely nice guy as well.
Yeah, so for those of you that follow this podcast, you've probably heard me talk a lot about Eddie Dennis as part of the NXT UK roster, doing an amazing job there. Awesome on the mic, a great promo guy, and doing some great stuff in the ring. But we'll kick off with the opening match of the night, Chapter 86, and it was Do Not Resuscitate versus the Anti-Fun Police. So Do Not Resuscitate, we had Chuck Mambo and William Eva versus Chief Deputy Dunne and Los Federales Santos Jr. So are you familiar with any of these wrestlers before this match, Matt?
Only really Damien Dunne, again,
Yeah.
from sort of like the Birmingham scene and Attack over the years. The rest of them, I think maybe I've seen Chuck Mambo once, but William Eva and Los Federales I've never seen sort of like live before. So
Yeah.
so it was a good start to the show, seeing people I didn't know and sort of like kind of getting back into it really.
Yeah, no, it is a really good tag match to kick things off. And one person I was really impressed with, not just in this match, but throughout the evening, because he kept popping up, and certainly during the interval, was William Eva, and he plays some kind of like deranged cult leader, and I thought a really interesting character, great presence, got a good look. I'd say him and the combo with Chuck Mambo did really well. They actually defeated the Anti-Fun Police in this match. So unfortunately, Chief Deputy Dunne and Los Federales Santos Jr. didn't go over in this match. But Do Not Resuscitate winning this match, fairly good tag match to kick things off.
Yeah, definitely, it's a good show opener. It was there's a lot going on. It's a bit of fun throughout the match as well. And
yeah, bit of
totally
comedy.
agree with you about William Eva as well. It's for someone that I don't really know much about, it was a good introduction to him. Fantastic beard, beautiful orange suit, and he really loves this day. So
Definitely,
it was, it definitely was a good way of getting the crowd going and sort of setting the tone for the night.
Love to call everybody sausage as well. That was quite amusing.
Yeah, everyone was a silly sausage. So.
Good way to kickstart the show. The next match was a 6-woman tag match. You had Ginny and Casey Owens and Laura Di Matteo versus the trio of Session Moth Martina, Millie McKenzie and Nina Samuels. So some familiar names there. Certainly Ginny, Millie McKenzie, Nina Samuels we've covered on NXT UK before. Not so familiar with Casey Owens, Di Matteo or Martina. That Martina is making a bit of a name for herself, and she has made a name for herself over quite a few years on the indie wrestling circuit, and she has made a bit of a name for herself on the indies in the States as well, in matches or tagging with Joey Ryan, from what I've seen. But what did you think of this match? I was very, very intrigued by the presence of Ginny. She's got a fantastic character, great entrance music, a really kind of dominating presence in the ring. To look at, like I say, she's not a diva or anything like that, but she's an awesome technician in the ring, got a great character, really good gimmick. But I thought this was a good match, and in the end the combo of Ginny, Casey Owens and Laura Di Matteo went over. Some really good action here, great 6-woman tag match. What were your thoughts on this one, Matt?
Yeah, it was another good match. Again, it's all the sort of participants I was kind of aware of, but not really seen a great deal of any of them. So it was good, and it just really shows sort of like the strength of women's wrestling at the moment as well. That you've got 6 women there putting a really good match. None of them champion or anything like that. It didn't have any tie-in with the belt or anything. So they told a good story.
Yeah.
The crowd were really invested in it from start to finish, and it was really entertaining stuff.
Brilliant, yeah. And I have seen Millie McKenzie wrestle on a couple of occasions before. She's I think she's really young. She's in her early 20s, I think, and she's really, really solid in the ring. Famous for her array of suplexes, and did really well in this match, but wasn't enough on the day with Ginny, Casey Owens, and Laura Di Matteo going over in another really entertaining match. The third match, another tag match, and this one pitted definitely some familiar names in one team, not so familiar in the other, and that's Jimmy Havoc and Mark Haskins, accompanied by his wife Vicky Haskins, versus Team White Wolf. So A-Kid and Carlos Romo. Now, I know David Anderson, who quite often guest hosts on Wrestling with Johners, has mentioned Team White Wolf before, so we obviously knew a bit about this team more than we did going into this match. Jimmy Havoc and Mark Haskins, I know we've seen Mark Haskins wrestle before. Have you seen much of Jimmy Havoc in the past, Matt?
A few times I've seen him, yeah. It's in sort of like varying promotions, sort of like predominantly around the Midlands, and in a couple of ICW shows as well.
Yeah.
So he's someone that I'm a really big fan of. I'm not really a big fan of sort of like deathmatch wrestling, so I don't really go out my way to watch any of that. But seeing what he does, in a wrestling ring is really impressive, and he's definitely a quality wrestler. He's just got a tendency to do the more violent stuff, but doesn't take anything away from his actual sort of wrestling ability, and he's excellent at what he does. And then teaming up with Haskins, who is probably like pound for pound one of the best wrestlers in the UK.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic combo, and it was a great match, really. It was very different styles, but it worked really, really well.
Yeah, definitely. I think Team White Wolf demonstrated a quicker pace, more of a high-flying ability, some submission, some groundwork there. So they seem to have kind of a really good package of offense there. And Jimmy Havoc, as you would imagine, just kind of, plenty of fighting and some good wrestling there. It went to the outside on occasions as well. There was one spot, I think, where they put both members of Team White Wolf on a chair, and Havoc and Haskins come in to do an attack on them, maybe a double super kick, but White Wolf kind of got in there before they did with a couple of super kicks of their own. But it was a good match. The combo of Haskins and Havoc went over in the end. And I think the highlight of the match for me, to be perfectly honest with you, was Vicky Haskins' presence. Big fan of hers. But a really good match there. Did enjoy it. Lovely seeing Vicky Haskins. And good match. Moving on to one of my favourite matches of the night. And we spoke a bit about Eddie Dennis earlier on, but he was in a singles match against DJZ. Now, originally, Eddie Dennis wasn't scheduled to appear at Birmingham. I think it was Jodie Fly she was meant to be going up against DJZ. But Eddie Dennis was a more than capable substitute for Jodie. And I thought this was a really entertaining match. Plenty of banter between the two wrestlers, but plenty of weird and wonderful sound effects from the guys on the desk as well, which was pretty cool. But it was kind of some comedy here, but some really good wrestling. I've not seen DJZ wrestle before, not even on Impact. To be honest with you, I've not caught him on TV before, but very impressed with him. A really competent and exciting wrestler, and I think these two had contrasting styles. But pulled off an excellent match. And like I said, this was one of my favourite matches of the night. What did you think of this one, Matt?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this and probably the Haskins and Havoc tag match was probably my two favourite matches altogether. But yeah, I agree. It was sort of like, it's very different styles. I've not really seen DJZ outside of TNA or Impact or whatever they're going by.
Yeah.
At the moment. Yeah, but I was quite impressed, and it did have the comedy element. Eddie works the crowd really well.
Yeah.
Plays up his opponents, and then obviously there was the you mentioned about the sound effects when Eddie sort of got the DJ to make the sound for him. The guy in front of us sprayed pretty much about 20 people in front of him with beer. Just started laughing just through taking the sip. So
it was a really good match. Yeah, really fun.
Yeah, it was very, very good. Like a really good finish as well.
Yeah.
And they, considering it would have been put together on short notice, it was a very strong matchup for both men.
Yeah, well, I went into it, loving Eddie Dennis, but came out of it a fan of DJZ as well, so I'll be looking out for him in the future. And then we had a qualifying match for this year's Super Strong Style 16 tournament, and it was a match between Chris Ridgway and Spike Trivette. or Trivet. I wasn't so high on this match, to be honest with you. I just felt that there was a few missed spots and it was a little bit sloppy with one or two kicks not quite connecting, which when we were fairly close up, we were kind of 4 rows from the front. I could certainly see, one or two things that were a little bit off. But I do like Chris Ridgway, and once again, Spike Trivet is part of the Do Not Resuscitate crew. So he's kind of part of that group with Chuck Mambo and William Eva. It was a good match, but like I say, I'm kind of don't go away from this show with fond memories of this match compared to everything else we saw. What did you think, Matt?
I quite enjoyed it. I'm a big fan of Chris Ridgway, and I think he sort of kind of epitomises sort of how I see progress. So really hard hitting. He's got a gimmick, but it's not really a gimmick in the traditional sense. So, but I quite enjoyed it, and it was sort of good that they had a bit of interaction with Do Not Resuscitate at the start as well, with William Eva getting booted, and then Chuck Mambo coming down and getting booted as well, and then obviously after the match they returned to put a bit of a beat down on Ridgway as well. So I think it ties in probably with storylines. I think we were potentially looking at it. Sort of out of context, maybe, but I quite enjoyed the match.
Looks like it didn't quite click for me, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. But it's important to have our own opinion on these things. The second to last match of the night was Trent Seven versus Austin Theory. Now, I've seen both of these two individuals wrestle before. Both very, very talented wrestlers. They both come in holding championships. So originally it was, I believe, meant to have been for Trent Seven's Progress Atlas Division Championship. There was some conversation between the two to start off with. I think it was a little bit of a tease that Austin Theory might put up his Evolve Championship belt to have a title versus title match, and then in the end it turned out to be a non-title match, but nonetheless this was a very, very good match. And I think I mentioned to you as we were heading out of the O2 Academy after the wrestling that this was possibly my favourite match of the night. I really did enjoy this because I thought it had everything from in my opinion, the star quality of having Austin Theory and Trent Seven in a match together, both two very credible champions, both very, very excellent wrestlers, and Austin Theory came across as the kind of cocky American heel here, and Trent Seven is the kind of the British saviour, but I really enjoyed this match. Trent Seven went over in the end, beat Austin Theory. Like I said, there were no championships on the line in the end, but I really enjoyed it. What do you think of this one?
I think this is another one we had a slightly different opinion on, I think.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of Trent Seven. I like the character, but I'm not necessarily like in awe of his in-ring talent. And I didn't really know anything about Austin Theory heading into it, so I had sort of, I didn't sort of like have any like pre-existing, knowledge of what he was going to be like. I think the back and forth at the start of the match was quite interesting, and I think that's where Trent Seven really shines. Is that he's good on the mic, and he's got a very solid character, and it was still a good match, but I think perhaps I possibly wasn't as invested in it.
No, that's fair enough. But I really enjoyed this match. It was good to see two big stars like this in the ring together. But by all accounts, Austin Theory is on his way to NXT, so we'll probably see a lot more of him in the future. The main event of the evening. I need to get this right. It was the South Pacific Power Trip, comprising of TK Cooper, Niwa, and Travis Banks versus Angelico, El Phantasmo, and Jordan Devlin. So I think I got all the names right there. Going into it, I think we all know Travis Banks and Jordan Devlin. I have seen El Phantasmo wrestle before, but this was a really good match. It was fast-paced, lots of action. Not too familiar with TK Cooper and Niwa going into it, but a really good main event. But it was actually the South Pacific Power Trip that defeated the babyface trio of Angelico, El Phantasmo, and Jordan Devlin. Jordan Devlin has obviously got that name from being in NXT UK, so that kind of star quality there, and he certainly got the biggest pop from that match. But what were your thoughts on this main event?
Yeah, I really liked it. It was like I say, it was fast paced. There was a load of spots in it. Everyone kind of got to show what they could do.
Definitely.
I think it was quite interesting with like Devlin and Banks, because obviously in NXT UK, the roles are reversed, where like with Devlin as the heel chasing down.
That was an interesting
Banks,
dynamic.
yeah, so it's completely the opposite. So so it was interesting. I mean, like Jordan Devlin's a fantastic performer. We've spoke about him previously, and so it was good to see him sort of up close and personal.
Yeah.
And then El Phantasmo, who I'd not seen before, but obviously heard a lot about, and just seeing him basically walking the entire way around the ring on the top rope, including sort of like jumping over kicks and everything. It's like it's amazing to see that taking place.
Yeah, that, like I say, there were some really cool kind of high-flying spots in that match that I'll remember for a long time. Certainly from Angelico and El Phantasmo, some really talented guys there. El Phantasmo, I've seen him wrestle once before, and he did exactly the same spot in the match I saw him previously, where he walked around all four sides of the ring along the top rope. But yeah, a really awesome guy. And am I right in thinking that El Phantasmo has just joined the Bullet Club, or I don't know if you've heard that, Matt, but I think I'm right in saying that, the Bullet Club in New Japan, of course. So if that is the case, he's certainly going to be a great addition to that group. If I'm wrong, then I'm sure that my listeners will let me know. But I'm sure I've heard that he's just joined the New Japan Bullet Club. But there we go. So a really good way to end the night. But I want to talk a little bit about what kicked the night off. So we had, let's say, Do Not Resuscitate versus the Anti-Fun Police of the kind of first official match of the night, but there was a dark match. Now, this won't be available on demand, and you won't see it on any DVD. But we did get a special appearance from a Birmingham native. Now, there was another UK indie wrestler called Bino that was brought out first of all. But do you want to tell us who the surprise wrestler or opponent to Bino was, Matt?
Are we even allowed to say it? Because I'm pretty sure it did not happen.
Well, okay, but I seem to remember the current WWE UK champion coming out for a special appearance in his hometown. And yes, the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne did make a special appearance. We were told to put our cameras away and to kind of be hush hush. We don't want Triple H finding out about this one. But it was an amazing way to kind of kick the evening off. I don't think anybody expected Pete Dunne to be there, and he was obviously doing it as a bit of a favour to Progress, because they've been so good for each other over the years. But his former Progress champion, of course, current WWE UK champion, and I think the main reason why I wanted to talk about this tonight was the deafening pop when he came out of the curtain, came out of the curtain. It was absolutely awe-inspiring. It was deafening, and it sent chills up and down your spine. It was an amazing entrance, I just think for that entrance alone, we would have been happy to have said, "Yep, that's it. let's go home now. We've seen enough." But then we had a whole show to go after that. But it was an amazing experience to see him there, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It was phenomenal. I think when sort of the music started to play, I think everyone kind of looked at the person next to him, and like, really?
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, I mean, obviously, he's from down the road, so it was, perfect opportunity for him to come back, and and seeing him in. I know Progress isn't really an indie as such compared to a lot of like the local shows,
yeah.
But to see Pete back in a ring in Birmingham, is amazing. And like I said, that pop is like, that's just like a main event pop.
It really was.
It was pre-show dark match. So it was pretty special. Definitely.
Listen, Matt, I'm going to let you get on with things, but thank you for coming on Wrestling with Johners once again. I do appreciate it. And yes, an excellent way to start the evening last Sunday, and a fantastic way to end it. I personally felt that every single match was top notch. Some stronger than others, but it was fantastic wrestling quality. I think everybody, really delivered that evening, and I can't wait to see another Progress wrestling show the next time they're close to me. But if they come to Birmingham again, Mac, I'm definitely going to another Progress show with yourself. I can't wait to see Progress again. So yeah, thank you for coming on the show again, Matt.
Yeah, cheers, John. Thanks for having me back again.
Thank you. So that was our review of Chapter 86 Progress Wrestling from Sunday the 10th of March at the O2 Academy in Birmingham. And thank you to Matt Bayliss for jumping on the podcast there to help us kind of do a review, a bit of a recap of the show, some of the matches, the winners and the losers, and what a fantastic show it was. Like I say, I know we're not really meant to talk about it. I can't imagine Triple H is listening to this podcast. But that special appearance, that pre-show match featuring Pete Dunne, the pop that he got when he came out was phenomenal. Every match on that card was solid. I'm sorry if I threw a little bit of a downer there on the Super Strong Style 16 match between Chris Ridgway and Spike Trivet. It just didn't click for me, whereas all the other matches were 10 out of 10. Really, really good matches. A great atmosphere. It was great meeting other people there. I met one or two other podcasters. A really, really nice day, all in all. Nice weekend, actually. Spending the weekend in Birmingham with Matt and getting to meet David Anderson for the first time. So I've spoken to him a few times. He's jumped on the podcast a couple of times. Obviously a friend of the show and a guest host of Wrestling with Johners. And it was great to finally, put a face to a name with David Anderson. Looking at NXT UK from the 13th of March. So this episode opens with Sid Scala and Johnny Saint, and they announce the NXT UK debut of Kaylee Ray on this episode of NXT UK, as well as a huge main event match from the show pitting Joe and Mark, the Coffey Brothers, versus the WWE UK champion Pete Dunne and the Ring General in a tag match main event. The opening match of this week's NXT is Flash Morgan Webster versus Wolfgang, and Wolfgang came out with his Gallus brethren, Joe and Mark, the Coffey Brothers, but they went back, leaving Wolfgang to go it alone with Morgan Webster. So Webster comes straight out of the gates with a high knee to the face of Wolfgang. However, Webster gets caught in midair from a springboard moonsault before Wolfie drops Webster with a snake eyes in the corner, then a wicked lariat turning Flash Morgan inside out. Webster makes a comeback with a Hurricane Rana and a springboard drop kick before nailing his opponent with a missile low pay, followed by a dive through the second and third rope, hitting his opponent on the outside on both occasions. Morgan nails a third dive, this time with a somersault senton over the top rope to the outside. So he's done a low pay, middle rope dive and over the top rope. Really good combination there from Flash Morgan. Morgan Webster gets a 2 count from a top rope senton before dropping Wolfgang to the floor with a precise enziguri, but Wolfie is able to catch his opponent on the outside before smashing Webster against the ring post not once but twice before hitting his caber toss finisher for the 1-2-3 pinfall victory over Flash Morgan Webster. So this was a solid win for Wolfgang, with a spirited flurry of offence from Flash Morgan Webster, as you would expect. And I have to admit, I am digging the Gallus heel Wolfgang here much more than I ever did when he was the babyface. And it was nice to see him here with a strong victory in singles competition. There's an additional beat down from Wolfgang on Morgan Webster before Wolfie finally goes to the back. We then see a video from Cassius Ohno, who we'll be seeing much more of in NXT UK in the coming weeks. Then we get a tag match pitting Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan versus Tyson T-Bone and Saxton Huxley. So this was a fun match between two contrasting teams, with the much smaller, fast-paced Williams and Jordan against the larger and more powerful T-Bone and Huxley, with Jordan taking most of the punishment from the heel duo to start off with, before Williams was finally able to get the hot tag. The pair of Williams and Amir Jordan hit a pair of stereo dives onto their opponents on opposite sides of the ring before the end of the match. This match went just under 6 minutes before Amir Jordan pinned Saxton Huxley following his Swanton Bombay from the top turnbuckle for the pinfall victory. We see a backstage video from Eddie Dennis, who sends out a challenge to El Ligero, who Dennis says that he will be the first in a long line of victims for the malevolent Eddie Dennis. We then see an in-ring promo from cocky Noam Dar, who says it is so good to be back in NXT UK, and this time the Scottish Supernova will be here to stay. He sends out a challenge to Mark Andrews, who comes out to the ring to chase Noam Dar out of the ring. Now, I believe that Andrews and Dar will be a cracking match inside the ring. However, I thought Dar's in-ring promo here was a little bit awkward and cringy at times, with Dar trying to be funny and clever, but getting very little reaction from the fans, as he felt it necessary to react to everything the fans chanted and said. Not the best promo from Dar, in my opinion here. He could really do himself a favour and listen to one or two of Eddie Dennis's promos before attempting this again. Then we get the NXT UK debut of Kaylee Ray versus Candy Floss. The last time we saw Kaylee Ray was in front of the NXT crowd at front row, of course, NXT TakeOver Blackpool, where she was standing alongside Jazzy Gabbert in January. Kaylee Ray was part of the 2017 Mae Young Classic, the first Mae Young Classic, of course. And she was seen in a number of matches on NXT from Full Sail in 2017 as well. More recently, she's been a part of the World of Sport promotion, which appears to have lost most of its major names to WWE over the last few months. Kaylee Ray won this match against Candy Floss in very quick and decisive fashion with a gory bomb finisher, and she is definitely going to be a serious challenger to the NXT UK Women's Championship in the future, especially with the addition of Viper. That was part of the Coventry tapings that we'll no doubt see in the next couple of weeks. There's a backstage promo from Tyler Bate and Trent Seven, with Bate sending out a challenge to James Drake on a future episode of NXT UK, and in fact that future episode will be next week, so that will be Tyler Bate versus James Drake, and that will definitely be a match to look forward to. Then we get the main event of this week's NXT UK, Gallus. That's Joe and Mark Coffey versus Pete Dunne and Walter. So much like Wolfgang's match against Flash Morgan Webster earlier, Wolfgang, pronouns pal, accompanies Joe and Mark Coffey to the stage, but goes to the back, allowing Joe and Mark to go it alone against the WWE Champion and the Ring General. So I'll never not be impressed with the entrance of Walter. The music, the lighting, the imposing figure of the massive Austrian, and I honestly believe that his future is not just limited to NXT or NXT UK. He has everything that could work on the main roster as well. I definitely see him as being a really big star in the WWE in general. Then there's Pete Dunne, as discussed earlier. We were treated to a special appearance from Pete Dunne at last Sunday's Progress show in Birmingham, and I've seen him wrestle on a number of occasions in the past. The reception he got when his music hit last Sunday was awesome, and that's one kind of reaction that I'll never forget, that pop when he came out when his music started. But tonight he's back in the NXT UK, of which he is the champion. Dunne starts the match with some joint manipulation on Mark Coffey. The match goes barely 5 minutes before Dunne and Walter's eyes lock in the middle of the ring. The match turns around after Joe Coffey pulls Walter off the ring apron, while Mark catches Pete Dunne in mid-air from an attempted leapfrog, dropping the champion to the canvas with a German suplex to gain control of the match. Walter gets a 2 count after nailing Joe Coffey with a seated senton. Dunne performs an excellent moonsault to the outside onto both of his opponents, and when the action goes back inside the ring, Walter executes a huge drop kick onto Mark Coffey, followed by an awesome Boston Crab, and then levels Joe Coffey with an almighty chop. In one of the more impressive spots of the match, Walter hoists up both Joe Coffey and Mark Coffey for a double German suplex for a 2 count on Mark. Joe Coffey drives Dunne into the barricade on the outside, while Walter falls face first against the top rope, appearing to cut open his nose on that particular unplanned manoeuvre. However, he doesn't let that bother him too much, as he ends the match with his patented big boot powerbomb combo for the 1-2-3. This match ends after 18 minutes with the UK Championship bout laying in the centre of the ring. Dunne goes to pick up his belt, only for Walter to put his big Austrian foot onto the strap, preventing Dunne from retrieving his title. This leads to a stare down between Dunne and Walter, with Walter picking up the championship, handing it over to the Bruiserweight, and I think we all know by now that Pete Dunne and Walter will go at it at NXT TakeOver New York on April the 5th, with the WWE UK Championship on the line just 2 nights before WrestleMania, and that will be an outstanding match. Dunne has held the championship for well over 650 days now, and has been an amazing champion. Walter will always certainly be the biggest threat to Dunne's title reign, and we only have less than 3 weeks to find out. Looking at NXT from Full Sail from the 13th of March. This week's NXT will be highlighted by the 2 semi-final matches in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, with the 4 remaining teams being Moustache Mountain, who take on the Forgotten Sons, and the combo of Ricochet and Aleister Black, who take on the newly reformed DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. There will also be a number 1 contenders match between Io Shirai and Bianca Belair to see who will take on Shayna Baszler at NXT TakeOver New York over WrestleMania weekend for her NXT Women's Championship. So the first match of the night is the first semi-final match in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Moustache Mountain, Tyler Bate, Trent Seven versus the Forgotten Sons, Blake and Cutler. So Tyler Bate starts the match like a ball of energy, as you would expect from Tyler Bate, with a neat shoulder barge and snap suplex on Wesley Blake. Trent Seven gets the hot tag, taking out both members of the Forgotten Sons, but Seven is floored by a tackle to the left knee of Trent Seven, which is targeted for the rest of the match by Blake and Cutler. Blake slaps on the figure 4 leg lock onto the injured Trent Seven to add further punishment to the former tag team champion, which he is finally able to reverse. Reversing the pressure, I've never quite understood how that works. Tyler Bate gets the tag from Seven, who does an amazing double aeroplane spin on both Cutler and Blake. That must have been well over 400 pounds of man on top of his shoulder there. Bate does miss an attempted shooting star press from the ring apron, but doesn't miss an exploder suplex, sending Blake onto his tag team partner Cutler on the outside, followed by another shooting star press, this time connecting to his opponents on the outside. Back on the inside, Seven and Bate hit their patented clothesline dragon suplex combo, which would usually be their finisher and would usually get the pinfall victory, but as Seven goes for the pinfall, Jackson Riker on the outside manages to put Cutler's foot on the rope to stop the referee's count. Bate connects with a dive over the top rope onto both members of the Forgotten Sons. The end of the match comes, however, when Bate is thrown from the top turnbuckle to the outside, where he is met by a stiff clothesline from Riker. Bate is rolled back into the ring, where he is nailed by their spiked inverted DDT combo from the Forgotten Sons before covering and getting the pinfall victory 1-2-3 on Tyler Bate. So that was a decent match and a good outing from both teams, with the Forgotten Sons going through to the finals there of this year's Dusty Classic with no small amount of outside interference from their leader, Jackson Riker. We then have a backstage interview with Matt Riddle, who was asked why he came out to interrupt the Velveteen Dream's appearance last week. Riddle explained his actions by saying that he just wanted a closer look at the North American Championship and to see if it came in bro size. Great line there. Riddle was then interrupted by former North American champion Adam Cole, with Riddle challenging Cole to a match inside the ring. That is definitely a mouth-watering match I can't wait to see. Shayna Baszler joins the commentary team ahead of the number 1 contenders match between Io Shirai and Bianca Belair to see who will face Shayna Baszler at TakeOver New York. This is going to be a match between one of the best wrestlers on the women's roster in Io Shirai and one of the best pure athletes on the women's roster in Bianca Belair. This is also the first time we've seen these two go up against each other, and it has all the potential to be a fantastic match to see who goes on to face Baszler at TakeOver, of course. Belair gets an early 2 count from a standing moonsault in the centre of the ring. Shirai nails a 619 and a well-balanced slingshot drop kick. Belair whips Shirai, who is hung in the corner with her braids. Shirai executes a Frankensteiner, taking Belair from the top rope to the canvas below. Shirai attempts a moonsault, but only for Belair to bring up her knees just in the nick of time. This was the cue, however, for the champ to leave her seat at the announced booth and to attack both competitors in the ring, causing the referee to end the match. Just then, Kairi Sane runs down to the ring to the aid of Belair and Shirai. This segment ends with Baszler slapping on the Karafuda clutch on all 3 of the babyface competitors, with Belair, Shirai and Sane all passed out in the centre of the ring as the champion looks on confidently with her championship belt placed firmly over her shoulder. So who will Baszler's opponent be at TakeOver New York? It is later announced in a backstage segment that she will have to defend her NXT Women's Championship against all three of the previously mentioned competitors, and it will be a four-way match between Shayna Baszler going up against Bianca Belair, Io Shirai and Kairi Sane at TakeOver New York, and that will be just 2 days before WrestleMania, the 5th of April. Following that very memorable match between Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic 2 weeks ago on NXT, it looks like we'll be seeing these two go at it again next week on NXT, and of course that match will be covered on next week's episode of Wrestling with Johners. Then we get the main event and the second semi-final of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, pitting Aleister Black and Ricochet versus the newly reformed DIY. Black and Ricochet come out to the ring first, followed closely by the newly reformed DIY Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, coming out to their old DIY theme and with their old DIY t-shirts, and to the loud ovation and approval from the NXT faithful. Remember that the winner of the second semi-final will be going up against the Forgotten Sons in next week's final of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, where the winner of that tournament final will then go on to face the War Raiders for the NXT Tag Team Championships at NXT New York, TakeOver New York. There's a blistering exchange between Ricochet and Gargano in the early going, with plenty of quick transitions and athleticism being shown by both men there. DIY makes some quick tags to take control of the match, dominating Ricochet in their corner. Ricochet does manage to make the tag after cleverly executing a neck breaker DDT combo on both Gargano and Ciampa. I love that move. I've seen it a few times before. Never fails to impress. Gargano gets caught with a wicked knee from Black from an attempted slingshot spear. Black follows this up with a brainbuster, and in one of the highlights of the match, all four wrestlers make their way to the outside where Ciampa manages to nail Black with an awesome Tower of London spot onto the ring apron. That was impressive and got a great response from the fans, and of course Nigel McGuinness, whose move that was. Gargano gets a close near fall following a slingshot DDT, which is closely followed by his Gargano escape on Black, while Ciampa executes a bridging Fujiwara armbar on Ricochet, which Ricochet was able to break out of by powering and lifting Ciampa up and dropping him onto Gargano to break his hold on Aleister Black. Although it appears as though Ciampa landed heavily on the left knee of Johnny Gargano on that kind of exchange to break up that submission hold, which could possibly affect the rest of the match as Johnny Gargano rolls to the outside. The end of the match comes with Black reversing Ciampa's fairy tale ending to connect with his formidable Black Mass spin kick. Ricochet follows up with a 630 from the top turnbuckle, hooking the leg of the NXT champion and getting the pinfall victory. Black and Ricochet goes through to the final of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic to go up against the Forgotten Sons next week on NXT, and this match went 15 minutes and it was wall-to-wall action. Truly fantastic. You need to watch this match if you haven't done so already. Johnny Gargano's wife, Candice LeRae, comes down to check on Johnny, but as Tommaso and Candice help Gargano up the ramp, Tommaso Ciampa goes to throw Johnny Gargano into the video wall, which is something he's done in the past, including when they first broke up as a tag team nearly 2 years ago at the very beginning of this storyline. But this time Gargano was wise and stopped in his tracks, looked and smiles at Ciampa before throwing Ciampa into the video wall himself, giving him a super kick for his troubles afterwards. Johnny Gargano shakes his leg as if to suggest that it was fine all along, and taking Ciampa along for the ride, whereas up until now it's been Tommaso as the puppet master. As the show goes off the air with a smiling Johnny Gargano and the fans chanting Johnny Wrestling, setting up perfectly their match at NXT TakeOver New York for the NXT Championship on April the 5th, or that was the plan at the end of these tapings. As we know and as we reported for the last couple of weeks, Tommaso Ciampa has had to have emergency neck surgery, which has ruled him out of action for possibly up to or over a year. And at this week's latest set of tapings, they have done a storyline which explains Tommaso's injury, having to vacate the championship, and there will be a match, and a Born Contenders match, which will be taking place over the next couple of weeks on NXT TV to kind of crown the new number one contender to go up against Johnny Gargano at TakeOver New York. So Gargano is kind of in the championship match, but there will be a number one contenders match, a multi-man match, to see who will face Johnny Gargano for the NXT Championship. And the tapings were done at Full Sail this past Wednesday, and it does kind of tie up all the loose ends. The card for TakeOver at the moment, as it stands, we have Shayna Baszler defending her NXT Women's Championship against Bianca Belair, Kairi Sane, Io Shirai in that four-way match, which I think will be phenomenal. We, of course, have the War Raiders, who will be defending their NXT Tag Team Championships against the winner of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Tournament Final, which will take place next week on NXT, pitting Ricochet and Aleister Black versus the Forgotten Sons. The Velveteen Dream will almost certainly be defending his North American Championship against somebody. I know who that person is. I think we'll probably know a lot more come next week's rundown of NXT. And another spoiler, but I did announce it last week, we will be getting Pete Dunne defending his WWE UK Championship against the ring general Walter at TakeOver New York. And then, of course, we've got the NXT Championship match, as I've just mentioned. Johnny Gargano is in that match because he was going to be in that match anyway, and he will be facing the winner of a multi-man match, which will be on NXT TV very soon. I know next week we're going to be getting the rematch between Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic, as I mentioned earlier on. I think that will go to another no contest, just the same as their first match from a couple of weeks ago. And I'd love to see Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic that'd be a great way to kick off TakeOver New York in a pre-show match. I don't mind it being on a pre-show match, but that would be a really great way to get everybody ready for the TakeOver main card. There we go. Well, a bumper edition. We spoke about WWE Fastlane from last Sunday. We spoke to Matt Bayliss, and the two of us gave a little bit of a rundown of Progress Wrestling Chapter 86 from Birmingham, also from last Sunday. We spoke about this week's editions of NXT UK and NXT. Lots of great action from those two shows, especially the two main events. Pete Dunne and Walter versus the Coffey Brothers, and the semi-final match of the Dusty Classic, DIY versus Ricochet and Black. Things are really ramping up for WrestleMania. Things are really ramping up for TakeOver New York. It's going to be a fun weekend. I really can't wait. Lots of action. I'm just disappointed I'm not going to be there like I was last year. But I will be catching all the action and reviewing all the action on Wrestling with Johners. So that's the end of this episode. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, shout about Wrestling with Johners, shout about the podcast. Like I always say, tell your friends, tell your family, keep listening to Wrestling with Johners, and kind of really, shout about it if you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for Wrestling with Johners for your weekly dose of my NXT, NXT UK reviews, the occasional WWE pay-per-view review, the occasional Progress Wrestling review and updates in there as well. You can listen to the podcast, of course, on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, Podbean, Podcast Addict, Anchor, YouTube. We are everywhere. So wherever you find your podcasts. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do. You can email wrestlingwithjohners@gmail.com if you have any questions or any feedback about the show. You can get in touch via our Twitter page @withjohners_pod. You can get in touch with us via Instagram @wrestlingwithjohners, or you can visit our YouTube page. Just simply search Wrestling with Johners, and you've got all the podcasts up there, all 30 episodes now, including my 4 videos from New Orleans from last year. You can join our Facebook group as well. Just go onto Facebook, search for Wrestling with Johners, tap on the icon, and you'll be approved to be part of the group, joining on all the fun and news and updates on that page as part of that group. So we'll be back later on this week for another episode of Wrestling with Johners, covering NXT and NXT UK. And like I say, as we get ever closer to WrestleMania and TakeOver New York, there'll be a lot more matches to talk about and a lot more news to announce. In the meantime, have yourself a great weekend, have yourself a great week. Take care, and speak to you all soon.